Hey everybody, today I'm going to be reviewing Mad God. This film was directed by Phil Tibbett. What a story behind this one. Tibbett, of course, is an acclaimed stop-motion animator who got his start in movies like Star Wars, the original 1977 film, you know, that old thing. And you realize so many of the stop-motion creatures that amazed us and scared us as kids, they are, you know, his creations. And, you know, he's obviously known as being a contributor to so many of these classics. And he's somebody who brings other people's visions to life while he maybe does his own projects on the side, on the weekends, during lunch breaks. His career, as prominent as it was in the 1980s, in the 90s, he's starting to realize that, you know, the art form of stop motion is starting to die out, and we're starting to use a lot more like CGI, computer effects and such. And thus his career started to take a bit of a turn, and little by little he started working more on his personal projects. But literally, Mad God he has been working on since 1990, which was around the time that stop motion starts to fizzle a little bit. But I think that's really astounding. That is the year I was born. There were multiple unsuccessful attempts of him trying to get the film funded, and slowly they are grinding away, you know, with whatever volunteers they could get, and you know, they get a Kickstarter campaign to help complete the film. This is truly a passion project where he, I think, is carrying a lot of the burdens himself, a lot of the stress as the project starts to grow in intensity. And I know that he struggled a bit mentally as a result of that. And I don't know. I think even though this movie has been marinating in his mind a long time, obviously, I can imagine that a lot of his feelings and everything, the visceral feelings he was feeling as he's starting to struggle, they're kind of making its way into the film, into the images. Because the film does feel almost like a mental unraveling of sorts, because you are seeing, as I said, just unrelenting torturous images constantly, and the camera is just kind of panning very slowly across them. You're seeing a lot of dystopian cityscapes and factories, that sort of thing, and a lot of really like glistening, greasy types of creatures. It is a movie that is very lethargic for me, so when I'm watching those types of movies, I do tend to let go of a lot of the things I normally am very alert about. So I'm not as, you know, I'm not thinking about things as much. I'm not as logical. I'm not trying to listen to reason necessarily. I'm just kind of going along with the experience. And I'm hoping that a lot of my emotions as I watch it can be kind of shaped little by little, especially as all my typical inhibitions are starting to dissolve. And that's a very kind of scary feeling, but also a feeling that I invite personally, especially when it comes to creative types of things. But that is also code for this film is not that easy to understand. It's definitely not accessible. When I watch it, it does feel almost like if you have like a little liquid droplet and you have another one and they start to merge together. Really, just like one sequence would kind of melt into the next one in a way where I felt very disoriented, and yet that didn't bother me. And as the structure of the narrative kind of loosens little by little, I found myself kind of, you know, letting go of that and not being so confined by it, mainly because it is skeletal by design, and really it's wanting the abstractions to take center stage. And like I said, Tibbett is revered obviously for his classic creature designs and such. So when you're watching this film, it does feel like you're getting, you know, all these like subliminal slices of pop culture. You're getting like images that remind you so much of Star Wars. It's like I'm seeing flashes of things like the Tauntaun or like a Rancor monster, Jabba the Hutt, and also a lot of the sound effects as well. So it's like, it's abstractions from Star Wars, like fragments of old designs, but they're all kind of jumbled in some sort of strange mental disarray. It's like, it's Star Wars on acid, twisted from hell, and it's a lot of acid. And whoever is taking it is having a deep spiritual crisis, I think. And when I first watched the film, the opening image is obviously a very bold one. I could just tell that there was a really striking concept going on here, and obviously the stop motion animation, the world building, and the attention to detail is so exquisite all the way through this film, truly. It's almost as if he's been working on it for decades. And the opening image is meant to be, I think, very obvious. It's reminiscent of like Dante's The Inferno. You're seeing kind of the seven circles of hell. And, you know, like with the music being really epic and just like the biblical overtones are really kind of bearing down on everything. So already it is letting you know that this is going to be quite an intense movie, and one that maybe you're not quite used to. And yet even so, it is the kind of movie that is like, it's like black on black in terms of just the tone of everything. And yet still, it finds ways to be very unexpected for me, even visually. It's always kind of winding around and taking strange detours at times, and I would find my feelings kind of falling into a sort of rhythm, and then things start to go in a different direction. I did see the film, I think, as a representation of mankind over time in obviously a very abstract sense. And obviously there is a biblical reference here. So it's like, the punishments that God inflicts on those who are defying him. Hence this world of like grotesque bile and barbed wire and just greasy flesh and blood. It's like, this movie really does feel like you're going inside of a cut or like inside of like a festering wound, and it's all 3D and it's really going for it. It's very forceful in the intent, and I really appreciate that. And there's a lot here that is reminding me, like I said, of the horrors of our history. I'm seeing images of like death camps, like Holocaust camps, and also humans' relationship to technology and developing industry, metal, that sort of thing, and how that is contrasted with the flesh, because I think this film is naturally very fleshy and bloody, but there's also a lot of like metal and hardness to it. And there are always like these bitter stings of like amps and babies crying in the background. So again, it's that mix of like the electronic with something that feels very human as well. And early on, like within the first 5 minutes of the movie, there are so many different references that are coming to mind. Naturally, there's kind of like a cyberpunk vibe. I just mentioned like human and machine. So naturally, I'm thinking of Tetsuo the Iron Man. That was a huge one for me watching this one, but I could go on all day. And everything from like Terry Gilliam movies to like Fritz Lang's Metropolis, partially from the aesthetic, but just also like the angular kind of sharp looks of the expressionism. And obviously there is kind of that, again, that psychedelic kind of Jodorowsky feeling. And of course it wouldn't be an artistic film without some reference to 2001: A Space Odyssey, and naturally David Lynch as well. This film absolutely will remind you of Eraserhead if you've seen it. And it reminds you just naturally of that cult type of movie, the midnight movie of the 70s. Sound design and the music, all that is very important here just because there is pretty much no dialogue at all in the movie. And like I said, everything is very simple. Yes, this is a dystopian critique of sorts, but a lot of that critique is coming from the density within the images. It's not the plot, it's not any momentum that is driving the plot forward. Maybe I wanted a little bit more of that emotional resonance, something that is a little bit more intimate of an experience driving it forward. But I have a feeling that when I watch this film again, I might find a lot of that, or I might be satisfied in the ways that maybe I don't feel it now. And this is a lot to take in just as an experience, and I do think it will develop over time. Like I said, I know that it is very gruesome. Like, it's so gruesome that it does run the risk of becoming monotonous. And yet I really did feel a lot of those shades, especially as it went on. I think you start to see more kind of interesting shades of grotesque beauty building in there. It actually reminded me a lot of a video game, just the experience of it, because it is so quiet and it is so dependent on the world and navigating everything in that sense. It reminded me of a game like Limbo or Inside, which are both very kind of simple in their design, but they're sharp and very shadowy, very contrasty. And it's the simplicity that is so well done, and it becomes kind of the driving force of the tension there, and it becomes a really haunting experience. And I don't know, I loved that. There is obviously some meta commentary going on here with Mad God when we're talking about filmmaking and its connections to reality and our own inner workings, our imagination. But I think mainly too, it's about the way that we've destroyed each other over time in all kinds of different ways. It's like we can create all these amazing things. Sometimes we create things that end up destroying ourselves, ironically. And there is a feeling of like destruction manifesting itself into art and the way we make art of painful experiences, how pain can become art. It is all kind of a complicated sort of feeling. There is a lot of like murky World War I trenches kind of imagery there too. There's also that biblical thread that is creating a lot of guilt at the center of it. And obviously man's repeated mistakes, the way we repeat mistakes over and over and over again. How much ego and hubris are a part of the human experience and the way we use all of that to gain power. But there's always that give and take with that power. The act of sin starts to emerge. And so I see this film very much as like the aftermath of that all, kind of sitting there and letting all the sins fester. I see this film as the type of film that's going to be passed around. I think it already is getting passed around. Honestly, that's how I heard about it. It's just one of those things that's kind of been, again, lurking in the shadows, and it's really by word of mouth. And it's just nice. It's a very nostalgic, old school feeling of wanting to pass around a movie very quietly, something that is a little bit obscure. And in a very saturated world when it comes to entertainment, that is a pleasant gift, I think. But yeah, I definitely recommend this film, and I think I recommend it mainly to people that are cinephiles, people who really appreciate animation, all that sort of stuff. But that is the review. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'm going to plug my website. As always, it is deepfocuslens.com. I'm an artist. I do commission portraits, and I also sell prints of my work. If that is something that you are interested in, you can always go to the website below, and if you have a question about a commission or a print, you can always email me. My email is in the description box below as well. Also, I would like to give a shout out to my patrons, who are fantastic. Thank you guys so much for your support, and welcome to the new members. If you are interested in supporting, the link for that is below, as well as the rest of my social media information. You can watch more videos here, and you can subscribe if you'd like. Catch you next time.